I remember back in 2023, every dudebro and their macho cousin were incessantly complaining about Monarch going too heavy with the human drama, even though it's a show specifically about the history of Titans on the surface. Well, it seems like Season 2 certainly followed up on that, because there's barely been any time for human resolutions amidst all the monster mayhem. Even more than Titan X, the limelight of the latest episode fell on another type of seafaring MUTO named Scarabs, who are somehow related to the newest threat in the series. So even if the bigger Titan may be dominating the conversation, that's not the only nightmare we have to worry about. It seems like Scarabs have been pretty much designed to bring the horror up close and personal to the humans, because unlike Godzilla and Kong, whose sheer size limits basic human interactions to nothing but terror, these smaller kaijus are clearly occupying human-sized environments. More importantly, these Scarabs clearly have some sort of pull towards Titan X, because it took one distress call from one of these little buggers for the mega kaiju to rush to its rescue. While there's a lot we're yet to find out about Scarabs and their symbiotic relationship with Titan X, let's discuss all possibilities of what their connection could mean. According to the show, the first evidence of these horseshoe crab-like bugs appeared in a 1957 flashback when a young Lee, Keiko, and Bill visited Santa Solidad and noticed a large bluish fossilized crustacean shell hanging on top of the bar they visited. When Bill was drawn by his curiosity and took a photo of this mysterious wall hanging, the locals immediately started attacking him, and probably would have beat him to a pulp if it weren't for Lee's intervention. Later, during the current events in the show's timeline, when Natalia Verdugo was showing Keiko the devastation caused by Kong while they were trying to rescue the Randa family out of the Hollow Earth, Keiko noticed a shadow of the same critter-like crustacean running amidst the chaos. The arrival of this creature was simply enough for her to convince Verdugo to go back to Skull Island and stop the rescue crew from opening up the rift again, as it would only spell doom for the world. Of course, that doesn't happen, as Kate ends up opening the rift by activating the pod and sending it through the Axis Mundi for Lee, who immediately races towards it, hoping it to be his only ticket to home. However, during this time, an entire swarm of the same bug-like creatures were also on the move, as they slowly entered the Vile Vortex, and some of them even tried to attack Lee as he tries to make his way to the Monarch rescue pod, but luckily he was able to fight them off as he climbed into the pod. At this point, these dog-sized bugs were pretty much chasing Lee, and one even managed to get inside the pod, almost killing him. This ugly critter has a huge mouth lined with dozens of sharp teeth, but Shaw manages to fight it and stab it with his knife before getting away. Later, after Lee comes back to Earth, the other Scarabs join Titan X in entering the Vile Vortex and eventually follow the Kaijus into the ocean surrounding Skull Island, as it swims away to avoid any confrontation with Kong. Then again, in the second episode, the Scarabs take on the main spotlight in both the past and future timelines. In yet another 1957 flashback, when Bill Randa decides to leave Santa Soledad and hit the open seas in order to track down Titan X, Lee and Keiko decide to stay back in order to figure out what was enriching the waters of the village. The locals then invited the both of them to their festival, which was held in honor of their god, El Gran Dios del Mar, in order to show their gratitude for providing the villagers with an abundance of food every single season. Soon, both Lee and Keiko get drunk and actually start to really unwind and enjoy themselves in a euphoric sort of way. In fact, as they recollect their intimate moments from the first season, the festival turns sideways as Thomas suddenly arrives to gut what looks like the carcass of a dead shark and uses the blood from it to draw a double helix-like symbol on Lucia's forehead. On a side note, this symbol oddly looked like the Titan's eye, and for a second it seemed like Lucia had some sort of a connection to this sea god as she turned to Lee and Keiko to tell them how they should have left when they had the chance. And with that, just moments later, we see all the residents return to their homes as an army of Scarabs broke free from the cave in order to reunite with Titan X and then chased Lee and Keiko to the shore. When they were surrounded, we see Titan X burst out of the sea and wreak absolute havoc upon the village. In the ensuing chaos, Lee kicks one of the Scarabs crawling towards him, and that provokes the Titan even more, leading both humans to almost get crushed by it. But luckily, the plot armor they wear runs pretty thick, and so they end up saving themselves from getting killed by this giant seafaring monster. Now, a different kind of havoc is wreaked in the 2017 timeline as a stray Scarab sneaks into the Monarch ship at Outpost 18. While scurrying around the rooms and hallways, it ends up killing a Monarch operative and then tries to attack Kate before Kentaro and Mei show up to incapacitate it with a flare gun. But after being hit by 2 flares, the Sea Scarab responds by emitting a sonic screech that not only disorients the humans for a second, but draws Titan X towards it. Now the Kaiju began racing towards the Monarch vessel, and to make matters worse, since the ship was not built for any sort of high-speed pursuit or anything remotely combative, the engines ultimately gave up, and it ended up getting stranded in the open waters. Luckily, everyone figured out that if they returned the Scarab, it could end up saving them from the Kaiju's wrath. And so we see Lee taking it upon himself to wrap the injured Scarab and race out to sea in a speedboat, hoping to draw Titan X away from Outpost 18. Of course, the plan works out, even though Lee almost gets killed by the Kaiju in the process. Anyway, as Titan X reunites with the injured Sea Scarab, we see the two drift away from all the ships. While it seems like the Monarch team lives another day to continue their mission to understand these MUTOs, we still do not know what the Titan X really wants, even though it's not clear if this new Mega Kaiju is intelligent enough to have any plan. Based on what we know from what happened in 1957 and 2017, it looks like Titan X is a mother to these Scarabs. So far, from whatever we know, it seems like these whole swarms of Scarabs join the sea serpent we know as Titan X wherever it goes, and so they also join the apex Kaiju in entering the ocean at the end, just before Kong gets to it. Apparently, the VFX supervisor of the show, Sean Conrad, revealed that the Scarabs were created to add a kind of tension for the actors, as they're often looking for ways to put their actors into spaces with creatures and have them on more direct eye level. Probably because there is a limit to what they can do about a 300-foot monster, except for run and hide or be astonished. These chittering Scarabs are a good example of something that fits in human-sized space, because having a creature running loose on the interior of a ship or in the Axis Mundi pod clearly puts Lee on a more even playing field with them. It's said that these creatures can also burrow beneath the sand to ambush their prey, and can even use their limbs to crawl on trees, walls, and ceilings. They run slightly faster than humans and can use their tentacles and razor-sharp teeth to overwhelm their prey. Their compact yet heavily armored bodies, bristling with jagged protrusions and unsettling organic textures, allow them to move freely through enclosed spaces. I think their design sort of evokes deep-sea life crossed with insectoid anatomy, giving them an alien, almost prehistoric presence that feels perfectly at home in the monsterverse. I mean, you look and tell me, do these little buggers not look like facehuggers? Having said that, these small monsters appear to be loosely tied to Egyptian legends of blood scarabs, who are basically creatures drawn to blood, and that makes sense because we see them come out of the ground in the show after a blood sacrifice in 1957. And they also clearly like to hunt human beings, as we see the scarab create menace on the Monarch ship. In Egyptian mythology, blood scarabs also reproduced inside dead bodies, which makes it very concerning, especially because Monarch has not yet discovered the doctor who was killed by the scarab before it crossed Kate's path. As you know, these scarabs and Titan X clearly exist in some sort of mutually beneficial relationship. Keiko had mentioned that something was enriching the waters of Santa Solidad, and from what it seems, Titan X releases nutrients into the seawater, encouraging shoals of fish that the scarabs can prey upon. But these scarabs must also benefit Titan X in some way, because it's extremely protective of them, because we can see it going out of its way to defend the scarab Kate had stunned. These creatures all communicate through sound waves propagated through the water, explaining the vibrations Keiko felt back in 1957, as well as the summons the scarab Kate attacked sent. Plus, there's that motherly connection, or some sort of female connection, which is why only women with a direct or passive connection to Titan X can hear it coming through the vibrations. as we see in Keiko and Kate's case. There's also the fact that after Lee returned the Scarab to Titan X, we see it cling onto the Kaiju with other Scarabs, so there's clearly a bond there. We also see them communicate via the lightning on their respective tentacles, which really is pretty damn fascinating. I don't think it would be too far-fetched to think that these Scarabs may be born from Titan X, and that's why the Kaiju is so maternally protective of them. Unfortunately, harming her Scarab babies, even in self-defense, would mean that Titan X would respond with violence, and that's why there's a high chance that this season will end with Kong having a brutal showdown with the Kaiju. I think Titan X is not inherently evil, and just wants to peacefully exist alongside her Scarab children in her home, but this is really just a theory. Up until this point, Monarch Season 2 has been going all in on the idea that Titan X is the deadliest of all the Titans, and now we know why. We're no longer talking about one sea monster anymore, we're talking about a Titan that has an army of thousands of Scarabs, and there is certainly no bond stronger than a motherly one. This basically means that even if one Scarab gets harmed, Titan X would be staring the humans of Earth in the face, and because Monarch is actively trying to avoid another G-Day, this makes for a very complicated situation, especially if these Scarabs end up on the land and start attacking humans. And even if these buggers are not directly related to Titan X in a biological manner, they simply may be a part of the Titan system. You know, like helper creatures similar to remoras on a shark or cleaner fish we see around a larger predator. Maybe their existence is built around Titan X, so they eat scraps and do most of the land work, allowing Titan X to pick off any victims awaiting her at the shore. That's why when the god of the sea appears, the Scarabs appear as an army for the god. There's still so much we don't know about Scarabs or Titan X, but this hidden, motherly, symbiotic relationship they have is something I'm quite excited about in this new season. What are your theories about the codependent relationship between Scarabs and the seafaring giant? Let us know all about them in the comment box below.